There we go. Okay, we are live, talking together, man. It's good to finally properly, interact. I know we kept postponing it. But it's good to finally talk, man. How you been?
I've been good. I went to get something like attached to my bike and all that. And afterwards, I was like, I'll go up to the mall and go buy a shirt. Bought a Wu-Tang Clan shirt. I like that shirt, and I do like the Wu-Tang Clan.
Good, man. No, I don't know even if I've ever heard the Wu-Tang Clan. What's like their most famous song? 'Cause they're like a huge band. I just don't.
Um, well, they're basically the hip hop equivalent to Slipknot, in which there's crap load of members. Like there's 10 members of Wu-Tang Clan. And basically they're hardcore hip hop. So, and also they're up in New York. That's where they are based in. And one of their most favorite famous songs is Wu Tang Clan "Ain't Nothing to Fuck With."
Okay, I'll have to give them a listen sometime. I definitely would be interested. I'm always willing to expand my music taste, so that'll be fun. I'm more of a pop guy, really. I'm very
Yeah,
mainstream. I think I'm boring, but I mean, I know you have a more eclectic taste. You like rock a lot, right? That's like
yeah. I like rock. I'm also basically a metalhead, so I got
metalhead.
that
Yeah,
going for me.
that's what I, yeah. Fair enough. So, anyways, Vaughn, I guess the reason that we kind of became acquainted with each other is we're both under 25, and we're both very much opposing legalization of marijuana, which I think it's kind of what
Yeah.
what really kind of drew us into each other and was like I was talking. And I gotta ask you, man, because I don't even like because I'll occasionally talk to someone our age who is against it, but they're not vocal about it. They're not necessarily like they won't like they won't be like you and I will share posts. We'll retweet Kevin Sabat, like stuff like that. It's to that
Yeah.
level where we're getting we're fans of learn about Sam, which is where I wish more people our age would be. So I just kind of wanted to know about like a little bit about how did you get to that point where you felt so that it's something that you felt so strongly about? Was there any particular reason? Because there's a lot of people who are kind of apathetic about it or marginally pro legalization. So I was just always very interested in seeing what your perspective is on
Well,
that.
my origins of it began when I found out about Colorado and Washington the day after Barack Obama won the 2012
Hmm.
election. I heard about that and I was like, oh, I can't believe this and so and so. And I remember you may have been on Facebook at the time that there was like so many posts about it, like people were
Hmm.
sharing memes and so forth.
Right, right.
And yeah, and at first, because I thought that I'm like, oh, these people that are pro, and also I didn't know too much about the drug, but I was against the legalization of it anyways. I didn't know too much about it. Knew a few things, but not too much. And eventually, because I thought, oh, the people that are pro, they don't know that this drug may be like bad for you and so and so. But then, like, I would say a year or two later, I think, yeah, summer of 2014, I was talking to my step grandpa. He was not my step grandpa at the time, but now he is. I was talking to him, and the tobacco, cigarettes, and all that were brought up. And I brought that up, and then he basically mentioned, he's like, yeah, the tobacco industries, they pretty much knew that their products were bad for them this whole time, but they just did it anyways to get money and so and so. So once he said that, I kind of put two and two together. I'm like, oh, that's what the legalizationists are doing. I basically figured that out. I didn't know anybody that was like comparing big tobacco to the marijuana legalization movement at the time. I'd never heard of that. I basically figured that out myself, and then I saw other people basically saying the same thing. And yeah, I would say one thing about the reason why there's young people that are not really vocally against it. I think that's because it's like, oh, you're young, you're hip, you're supposed to be cool and all, and And also, I would say that pro legalization advocates, they can become very obnoxious at times. They're very douchey,
Yeah.
very pretentious, and condescending. They're kind of like pro gun advocates, basically, but pro gun
They really are.
advocates are pretty much like we're kind of winning this tide against the pro gun advocates at this point, since what happened at that school down in your home state of California, not California, Florida. But yeah, I basically notice about pro pot legalization this, and also pro gun legal. No, not pro gun, but pro gun advocates, as well as that very condescending, that very obsessive nature. And I basically figured out in my mind, like, if you're obsessive about an inanimate object and
Mhm.
very douchey about it, you're probably full of shit. I basically just have that
Right.
belief. That's the same thing with
Yeah.
people that's the same thing with people that complain about people burning the flag. Or like, oh, you can't burn the flag. It's so un-American. You're insulting the troops. And it's like, oh, it's not. It's a piece of cloth. We have a First Amendment. It basically allows us to do so. It's not hurting anybody. It's the people that are burning the flag. They're not hurting themselves. And those people that burn the flag, they're just protesting the government. I don't think any flag burner really has said, "Oh, I hate the troops. That's why I'm doing this."
Right. Right. No, that's good, man. I think you've had an interesting journey. Mine is similar. Um, honestly, I've always had like I think it started, when I was in elementary school, we all get the don't do drugs spiel, but I was the kind of kid who in a way I was kind of the goody two shoes kid from multiple perspectives. That when that speech, I remember that we got like pamphlets and all that. I remember
Yeah,
to me it was not a there was never a controversy in my mind really about specifically about illegal drugs. It was just more like no, I'm definitely never going to do that. And I remember in my very naivete, I guess I really thought never gonna. No one around me is gonna do it. Like we were like third, fourth graders, and we were like, oh no, we're never gonna do that. And then as
yeah,
as the years went by, and the classmates I had, they ended up they experimented with alcohol, tobacco, and so on, and then weed. So, but I
yeah,
remember that I never had any interest in that. It's like there wasn't even a spark. Like there's people who have that spark. Kids and the teens who will grab a drink, but specifically about weed and illegal drugs. I never had like that interest in it, and I was just like, no, that's gross. I'm like, I remember just
yeah,
I took it very. I guess the quote unquote they say that there's been, and I'll be more than happy to admit that some of the anti-drug programs weren't exactly the most successful on
yeah,
I guess a lot of people, but it worked on me, and I'm not saying
yeah,
it shouldn't be changed because it should, but it worked really well on me. I never like it did it for me like the I criticize it all you want, and I'll be with you. But your brain on drugs, add that's all I needed. So
yeah,
I never fell for it. And then as I got older, and I enter my mid-teens, that's where I kind of started researching it. I mean, and I was against legalization even before. I know you became aware of it during the Colorado situation, but I had become more aware of it a year or two prior to that. I have had like a conversation, or I had internalized the marijuana situation. For me
yeah,
it was just I had never any interest in it altering my consciousness, and I thought it was lame.
yeah,
Uh, and I didn't even really know the smell. Like when I was younger, honestly, the smell of weed and the smell of cigarettes were very interchangeable. It's just as I got
yeah.
older, I could really start telling them apart. But
Oh yeah, I've noticed that as well. Like whenever I would like get a whiff or something, I'm like, is that
yeah,
nicotine or is that pot? Because like
yeah,
they do kind of smell similar a little bit. If
right,
you're like walking somewhere, like is that or it's like or did somebody mix those two together? Because I know that I think and maybe in Indonesia or some other oh no Jamaica there's people that are pretty much just mixing tobacco and pot together to create something new. I
yeah,
forget the name of it, but they basically just mix these two together or create something new out of it.
yeah. I mean, you have blunts, which is essentially mixing tobacco with weed and smoking it.
Yeah.
there's a whole sorts of situations, but yeah, and then I once I got involved, once I started, getting more active Twitter and Facebook, I was a one guy, because in my later in high school it became kind of a hot button issue. I became with issues. That
Yeah.
one was one where, 'cause I mean, in pretty much every all most meaningful. I would say I'm a non-hypocritical progressive because I'm against legalization of marijuana,
Yeah.
recreational marijuana, because as you and I agree with, like there's a corporate interest there to exploit the drug and
Yeah.
addicts. So because that's really what that's about. So I would say that's something that the Bernie Sanders out there in the world are not necessarily noticing as much. The
Yeah.
so that's something that, so I don't feel like there's really a thing, but I guess I do meet a lot of progressives, and it's carried on to college. Like I go out and I knock on doors for Democrats. I've done it before, and
Yeah.
but when I'm talking to some of these people who I'm knocking doors with, some of them are, I don't know if I want to call them potheads. Maybe one or two of them are, but some of them are at least casual users. Others are more regular users. But yeah, and it just becomes it becomes a bit of it could be friction ever since high school, because yeah, and I never really found someone like that's I never met really anyone who's like really active. Like I've been to events, a few years ago on Florida, we had on the ballot we had this medical marijuana initiative
Oh
started
yeah.
by this guy named Jordan Morgan. And, I mean, this is a statewide. It was a statewide issue. You probably at least heard about it getting
Yeah.
like it didn't. Mhm.
Yeah, I got that because I remember back in 2014 when Alaska
Yeah,
and Oregon when that passed. I saw
yeah,
Florida. I got the recreational and medical mixed up, so I thought, oh, it was recreational. I'm like, yes, it failed in Florida, but I eventually found
yeah.
out it was a medical initiative that
Yeah,
failed.
it's a medical initiative. It was a medical initiative, and I voted against it twice. And then I get I mean, they made like a few changes to it, and it got approved in 2016. But was not ever, first of all, a proposal of that amendment
Yeah,
is, is John Morgan. Yeah, I don't know if I'm familiar with some of his Twitter. He's very much a very pro marijuana. He's like they like how you marijuana people being so obnoxious and get
yeah,
really really rich.
yeah, yeah. Sorry if I can't hear you
One of the money
because
spent. So that's
it's getting kind of fuzzy on your end.
Can you hear me better now? I had to connect my headphones so I could improve the quality of the
Yes.
audio. Can you hear me better now?
Yeah, I can hear you and see you a little bit better now. Yeah, I do find it ironic with Bernie Sanders, in which he's like, no, no to corporations, but yes to legal pot. I do find that funny.
Right.
I'm like, really, Bernie? You don't see
Yeah.
what's going on here?
Yeah, and I never even seen him address it because, and it's exactly because he appeals to a young fan base,
Yeah,
and I mean a lot of I mean it's not I've never seen actually anyone address that question to him because I feel like the marijuana issue, especially when Bernie brings it, he doesn't think it through. It doesn't seem like it's really well thought out, and I get it. Like it's not really Bernie's priority is really tuition-free colleges, which are measures that I absolutely support. So those are the ones where he will get into the itty bitty details about it.
Hmm.
Off,
Yeah,
he gets a line of applause, and then he moves on. So I mean, and I don't see it being addressed. If anything, Hillary Clinton had a much more thoughtful view on marijuana. I like her this her response to the questions on marijuana a little better, legalization and some forms of medical marijuana, whatever that may be. There's some compromises that have to be made when you're voting for a candidate. But Hillary, marijuana and guns, Hillary was really, really. But anyways, to get back to the issue, yeah, there was a measure. And, I showed up, to this debate at this community college, on marijuana, and it was like the main proposal. This was like I knew the guy who was arguing against, like the guy on, well, in this case, there's like, it's kind of funny because the guy nice. I had lunch with him prior to the debate, like a few days ago, and but I did notice, that I mean, he's a Marco. He literally works for Marco Rubio, so he's like
No.
he's like yeah, no, staunch Republican guy. Like I follow him on Twitter, and he's staunch Marco Rubio Republican guy. So, but I like the way he presented his points, and he was a very nice guy. But in the back of my mind is like, because I was like, man, I wish I could see a Democrat. In my opinion, a Democrat could argue this point better.
Yeah.
Because I mean, the Nancy Reagan era, say no to drugs attempt, which is not something that we want to go past that and take a more
Yeah.
public health approach. We don't advocate with the so quote unquote war on drugs, whatever that means. The terms,
Yeah.
what, but you don't want to get that associated. There's always a term, and I don't know how. Have you read Sabet's book? By the way, I have my copy. I don't know if you read it or you have it, but it's really good. I don't know if you have.
I'll have to buy it soon enough. Probably this Christmas I'll get it or something like that. But I did get a book.
Oh yeah.
I'll probably be getting it sometime soon. It's not really about the pot issue, but it's more about because there's this one guy who's anti-pot. He's moderate conservative. He's from, like, you could say, you can consider the website moderate conservative website, Hudson Institute. Um, his name's David W. Murray, and he basically published a book along with two other people about pretty much how, like, the media kind of like twists the scientific truths about things, which I do agree. Like, to the extent they do, like with the AIDS epidemic and a few other things.
And since we're talking about it, like I like, I guess I kind of wanted to talk to you was you're a Republican, because a few people our age that I have met who are somewhat have been Republicans. I remember a few years ago I met up with I went to an event uh, in South Florida, and, and I mean, I spoke to some Black Lives Matter people, and then spoke to some Republicans, and the only person I could really find who was in agreement with me on the marijuana issue was like this leader of like this young Republic, pretty much on the, at least on the superficial basis, on marijuana should not be legalized, and public health approach, and he would agree with that. And then, but at the moment we switched topics, the moment we started talking even gay marriage, I mean, this guy was against gay marriage, and it just kind of kills the vibe a little bit, because
Yeah,
I
I
don't
get it.
like I'm very passionate, like I'm a passionate liberal progressive, and when there's like a disagreement on especially these social causes, it breaks the rapport.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah.
good that you are, yeah.
Yeah, sorry about that, but yeah, I like, you may have noticed something, but I'm a moderate basically. I mean, I lean
Yeah,
slightly to the left, but I'm sure you can kind of tell that I'm a bit of a moderate, as you can tell with
right.
some things on Twitter and even on Facebook, to the extent that I'm a moderate.
Yeah, no, I
I'm
see it.
yeah, yeah. There are
Yeah,
some
no, I see
things.
it.
Yeah, there's
Hmm.
things on the left and there's some things on the right that I like, but I basically like between those two, and there's things on the left that I disagree with and things on the right that I disagree with as well. But like you could say 99% of things on the libertarian side, fuck no, no,
You're a
not
libertarian
at
now?
all.
You're not a
I
libertarian. Come
what?
on. You
No,
can't be a
no.
libertarian. Okay. I'm gonna call you out if you say you're a libertarian.
Oh no, basically what I was getting at there, I'm like there's things I can like agree and disagree on both like the right and left side, but like like 99% of the time I disagree with libertarians. I don't like
Right.
libertarians. I don't
Yeah.
like
No.
libertarianism at all.
Yeah. No, I
I
mean,
mean,
like, I'm not a communist. Yeah, like, yeah, no, like, I'm progressive, but I'm not a communist. I mean, I support. I don't know if you would agree with me or here or not, but I support, universal health care,
yeah,
tuition-free college. I support a living wage. I support all of the major criminal justice reforms.
yeah.
So I don't know how committed you are to those. I mean, my impression, at least from your Twitter, was that you do support them. I don't know how
Yeah,
much or which sort of fervor, but you can tell me like if I got that wrong. Uh,
I would say universal health care. I do support. I do support that. Yeah, I basically like a while ago, and one of our allies, Luke. I can't think of his last name, but Luke. He's one of our allies. Lives in Virginia now. Used to live in Colorado, but he basically liked my one comment on Twitter, in which I basically compared libertarianism to communism, which like they both
right,
sound nice on paper, but like in practice, they pretty much go against human nature. Like they're against like human nature pretty much. And I think Noam Chomsky, he said it best with libertarianism. Like it basically looks good on the surface, but like if you look more into it, it's basically calling for corporate tyranny.
right, exactly. So yeah, no, we agree there. Like we agree. We both despise libertarianism, and just going through your feed right now. I know we're passionate about gun control. I think we can agree on that
Yeah,
completely, right? Yeah, I know that we've even drawn some comparisons between the gun control, the pro-gun movement and the pro-marijuana movement. So
yeah.
yeah, I mean, would you call yourself a liberal? I mean, is that a term you're comfortable identifying as?
Yeah, in a way. I mean, I mostly vote Democrats. Like I voted
Right,
for Hillary for the presidential
right,
election.
right,
And then for like all the local people, I'm like, I don't care. Left, right, left, right. I just like randomly, like I didn't really care. They're just local people.
right, right. Like school board stuff like that. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't even know if I voted for a school board last time where I live. It's just I don't know much. I don't know any. I mean, it's just I'm so unaware of it. But I'll try to research a little bit so I can cast a somewhat informed vote for those. But yeah, no, I just figured because I could tell that this guy's not a Republican clearly. This guy's not a libertarian clearly. So I figured we could find common ground the fact that we're both liberals, you know Democrat voting liberals
Yeah.
who see the value in opposing legalization and promoting at least not abusing drugs, not not and yeah, and I see that I know you told me you don't drink either. Have you ever drank or done any drugs? I think I may have asked you, but I was just curious if you could.
I don't know. I just really just drink caffeine
Right.
and like occasionally I'll drink caffeine and like for medication I'll take medication. I mean, there's been times which I'll just smell like alcohol or tobacco or pot or
Right.
whatever, and I'm like, ugh. And I'm like when I
Yeah.
smell it, sometimes it gives me a little bit woozy a bit. I'm like, ugh, like I doubt it's even giving me a buzz. I just think it's just making me woozy. I'm like, ugh, that's not good.
Yeah, no, I sympathize with that. I've never had it. I guess maybe like when I was younger, like I was curious, oh, what does it taste like? I had like sips of alcohol, but I've never actually had like a proper drink as a grown up. Like I've never actually like poured a cup of, some alcoholic beverage and
Yeah,
just drank it or taking a shot, anything like that. I've never done that.
yeah.
So I was actually gonna curious to ask you in that particular regard. I don't know because the reality is, and I'm honestly curious. Like, I don't know. Like, actually, before I get to that, I just wanted to ask you: have you ever like interacted with Kevin Sabat? I know that you follow him. I mean, he follows me. Like, it's like amazing. But yeah,
He
he's messaged me a few times. DM. He's like amazing. I love that guy. But yeah, go ahead.
he Yeah, I basically he follows me as well. Basically, I have like liked and we retweeted a bunch of his stuff, and he's liked a few of my stuff as well.
Pretty
I
good.
messaged him a little while ago, said hello, Kevin. He has to see it or message me back. He's a busy guy, so I can
Yes,
understand.
yes, yeah. No, he didn't message me. I was like, that's awesome. He messaged me years ago when I started college. He's like, if I'm ever like, he's actually I go to the University of Florida and he's an associate professor at the University of Florida. He's just really never
Nice.
here. So, but he told me, if I'm ever in town, he's like I said, he's a busy guy. He's moving around, going all over. But I mean, I have his book. I mean, one day, I mean, if I ever meet him, I hope I get it signed. Let
Yeah,
me send you. By the way, let me send you a link to his book. I was going to send you a link to the Amazon of his book because trust me, I mean, it's a short book too. You can read it in like a day. It's really good. It's really great. See, they
yeah.
shape.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah, when I was reading and because I looked up some things about Kevin and all that, and eventually, like something took me by surprise a little bit. I did not know he is Iranian because he looks like a white
Yeah,
guy, basically.
Baha'i faith. Yeah, Baha'i faith. That's his background. I don't know all much about it, but I do know he has like a background in Baha'i faith. Like that's where his family's from.
Yeah, he's
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
he's from Iran. I think he was born. No, I think he was not born in Iran. His parents moved here, or something like that. He was either born in Iran or he moved here. But I have actually looked up the origins of his last name, and I
Right.
guess he may be also Arab as well, because his last name has like Arab and Islamic connotations too as well. So he may be half Arab or has some Arab lineage in his DNA.
Yeah, it's very nice. Yeah, yeah. I just really respect his strong passion. Like reading a little bit of his biography. This man has been like since he was like 18 years old. He has been speaking out in congressional hearings and at least locally. Local meetings. He has like a background of just doing this. And he has a great academic
Yeah,
credentials. Oxford, I believe, and I forget
yeah,
what else, but yeah, and I really like, and his book is excellent. It's really well written. The arguments he puts forth, I think, the way he debunks some of them. I need to keep rereading them because people always keep bringing up Portugal as a oh
yeah,
well they worked in Portugal, they worked in these countries, and Sabed has like all of these great research lined up on his book for countering all of those things, and I like the proposals that he offers to to what do we do then? I mean, what's the option? And yeah, it's a really great book. I was and with a bit of a book club. It's really nice. How socially speaking, I mean, do you have friends who partake, who are, I mean, not necessarily potheads, but I don't know, who do it occasionally or who drink. I mean, just because of
Oh
how.
yeah, I have people that I know that do that, and yeah, in middle school, late middle school, and even early high school, they were
Mhm.
like smoking pot and drinking and doing some cigarettes as well. But then with some of them, it progressed to other things as well. I know a few of my friends that have done cocaine or still do cocaine.
Yeah.
I know one of my friends, he was up in Youngstown, going to see like some underground band, and afterwards, my one friend had to drive him home while he was high off his ass on ketamine.
Wow.
So,
Yeah.
so I have people that have done a bunch of stuff. You name it:
Yeah.
shrooms, LSD, cocaine,
Yeah. Right.
pills.
Yeah. I do too. I have at least, well, I don't know if I really have friends, that many friends who are all over the place, but pretty much all of my friends, at, at least they drink. I don't really think I even have a close friend who doesn't drink, at least socially. That's something. So it kind of it's brought up because I remember when I came to when I first started college, everyone told me, hey, everyone says they're not gonna drink, and then they end up drinking. It's gonna happen to you. I'm like, I knew, and I just know myself that well. Nope. and I've gone out, and I've been in social environments. I've been in parties and all of this
Yeah.
where people do it and where I'm offered, and I haven't had the slightest like interest in doing so. And I enjoy myself. I talk to people and all that, and go to music, dancing, all of the things that you can do at a party that don't require alcohol. But it always kind of brings it to me. Do you ever feel like, and I guess it's just I don't really get to ask that many people who are that way. Um, you feel like you're missing out on something from what people tell you when you say you don't drink, when you go out, you never had any alcohol. I mean, I know you're a little younger. How old are you? Like 20, is it?
Oh yeah, I'm 20. I'm
Right.
very baby faced, so I can be
Yeah.
mistaken to be 16.
No, no. I put you at 20. I would put you at 20.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you're not even old enough to do so. I mean, but I guess I'm asking because I mean, how many 20-year-olds do I know who still do it in all sorts of environments? But I take it. Do you
I
ever
mean,
feel like
I'm
it's
I mean, I'm old enough to like buy cigarettes. Like in my state,
right?
it's like 18 and older to buy cigarettes. I think most
Right.
states it is 18
Yeah,
and
that's
older to
right.
buy cigarettes. But I don't
That's correct.
smoke or chew tobacco. My dad chews tobacco, and he's not the
Yeah.
healthiest guy around.
I don't have any free. I'll be honest with you. I don't really have that many. Know that many people who smoke tobacco. Tobacco
Yeah,
has got usage has gone down even among young people. But
yeah,
I do have friends who will partake in like alcohol. It's a sure thing for all of my at least the closest friends I've made in the past few years. I don't think any of them are alcoholics, but they do it, and some of them will meet. I mean, sometimes we talk about them. The argument that they make is,
yeah,
to them it's something that they wouldn't trade. They to them it enhance their college experience, and they give me all of these interesting arguments about why they do it,
yeah,
and why they wouldn't want to stop doing it, and that they consider themselves responsible users. And it just builds a good conversation, a good discussion about it.
yeah.
I was just curious about. I mean, you're still young. I mean, do you feel honestly like, I mean, you're 20. Do you think by the time you're 25, you'll still be able to say with confidence? Because I can tell you with confidence that by the time I'm 30, I'm not gonna have had a drink. Can you say that? And I'm just curious because it's just
I probably will. I'm fine being boring.
well, that's the thing. I actually I challenge that because I don't. I mean, ideally, no one really wants to be perceived as boring by people you want to. I mean, everyone wants to be liked, right? So you don't want to be considered boring by people who want to. At least you want to appeal to people, right? You want to be. I mean, it depends on the situation, but at least me personally, I can't really speak for anyone else. But I don't. I actually kind of do think about that sometimes. Do I want to be boring and just choosing not to drink boring? And I make the argument that I do, that it's not. That you can be fun and happy person fulfilled without having to drink. And I don't think really most people really would disagree with that. But to me, it's like it's a constant conversation because people bring that up to me often, and
Yeah,
it's not trying to get me to even get me to drink. I haven't really had like people peer pressure. The people I know, even when I'm in a social environment, we're all pretty respectful. It's no one's
yeah.
pushing anything on anybody, but sometimes, the conversation does get brought up on in respectful terms. Say, hey, do you drink? Do you not drink? And I guess, I'll always say no. I don't partake in this. And it's just, it's interesting. It's a bit of a tangent here, but I was just curious to see how firmly you are. So you think by the time you're 25, you'll still be a teetotaler, zero
Yeah,
alcohol?
probably. Like the best fun I actually do is pretty much just sit somewhere with my laptop and just jerk off and watch porn. That's like the least of fun that I actually have for myself. I mean, I
Yeah,
do that in my privacy. I don't do that out in the open, but that's like
right,
the least fun I actually do. And sometimes it can just be boring. Like sometimes I'll
right,
just be there. I'm like, what am I doing? This is not really getting me off that much. Like I need to
right,
get laid. I
right.
just tell myself that. But first, I need to get over just like actually talking to a girl because I'm a little bit weird around women. I mean, I can talk to women, but I have not had a good success rate with the ladies.
Right, right. No, I see, but no, I mean, everyone's. yeah, I guess you got to work on yourself on that. But I was just, yeah, I guess that's just interesting because you don't need alcohol to do that. I mean, you look
Yeah.
at, but I guess, yeah. I guess I lost my train of thought a little bit, but on the on the alcohol issue, I guess it's a conversation that I have with people, and I'm always just curious about where other people stand on it, especially you saying that you don't drink, but yeah, I mean because you go to these. I mean, I know that you do stand up comedy
Yeah.
when in these clubs. I mean, I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say that there's probably alcohol offered at these clubs.
Yeah.
They serve
Yeah.
alcohol.
Yeah, certain venues have alcohol and all that. The venue that I'll be going to perform this Thursday won't have alcohol at it as well. It's like basically the place I'm performing at because I performed at there before. That was the 16-minute one that I performed at that
Right,
place at the Calvin Center. I'll be doing that gig a second time, and they don't serve alcohol there. It's only like pop and candy that they have, and I'll only be up there for like 9, 10 minutes. Yeah, the reason why that one was long, like 60 minutes long, because I kept making side comments on the side. I'd never done like I was initially going to do 10 minutes, but I was nervous, so I got very comfortable as well up on stage. You can tell, like if you can, if you can remember, I was getting very comfortable up on stage. Like I basically just flat out said on stage, I'm like, I'm having fun. And I pretty much was. I really like was very
right,
comfortable and like, oh, I can keep doing this if I had more material.
right. Because what might happen, is people after they're done, um after you're done with your thing, they'll it's such a social convention, to drink.
Yeah,
You get out of it. But there's people out there who don't drink. It's not that unique. It's just interesting when you're out in a social environment. It's like
yeah,
because people call it the social lubricant. I mean, just to me, it looks just ridiculous. Like, if
yeah,
anything, whenever I go out and I see people under the influence, it makes me want to drink even less.
yeah.
If my resolve not to drink 4 years ago was like here, now it's right over here. Like it's grown more
Oh,
than
my
anything.
my dad and his family with their history of alcohol pretty much just turns me off from it. My dad's pretty much an alcoholic, and for
Really?
I mean, he's not a very bad drunk. I mean, he doesn't get drunk a lot, but he'll drink a lot when given the opportunity. And he even admitted because me and my mom were just basically go on and on and on to him, and he was like, "Oh, I'm not," and all that. But then like a month ago or like late May, he was on the phone with his brother, my uncle, and he pretty much just admitted to my uncle Ron. He said this. He's like, listen, I'm alcoholic. So he pretty much just admitted to his brother that he's alcoholic. He won't admit it to me and my mom. So it's interesting. Yeah,
Right.
yeah, yeah, one thing about the whole like when I was comparing like the pro gun and pro pot thing there. Another thing I like to compare something to with one of the arguments that legalization proponents make is about the whole black market thing. Now I have done a lot of research about another topic, something that's not really it's not big of an issue here compared to Europe. I mean, in Europe, this is already legalized in a couple of countries, and there's only really one state in this country in which it's legalized, and that's prostitution. And I found out that countries that have legalized prostitution pretty much have high rates of black market activity, like high rates of sex trafficking rates and all that. And I find that interesting that people that like basically use the alcohol prohibition model as an argument, like, oh, if we legalize a substance and the black market will just go away. Well, I'm
Right.
like, well, it didn't really work with prostitution. Prostitution is a very big business in the black market, particularly with countries that have legalized it. There's a lot of activity with illegal prostitution due
Right.
to the fact that prostitution has been legal for a very long time, and uh, uh, the black markets are very comfortable for having it legal for a long time, so they're not really going to go away. And the alcohol prohibition argument is a very bad argument if you want to say, oh, it'll just go away. Well, the reason why it's a bad argument is because alcohol is only illegal for 13 years. And also, beforehand, alcohol use was, very popular. They just, throw like, oh, draconian laws right away. So that is not a very good model use saying, oh, if we legalize it, all the black market will just go away. And it's like, oh, no, it won't go away for prostitution or for drugs. If you legalize one or the two, the black market will still be there. Even one of Kevin Sabet's inspirations back in 1989, I forget the name of the guy, but I'll give you his name after we're done with this conversation here on Twitter. I'll give you his name, but he was in an interview with this one guy. It was back in 1989. This interview was so close to 30 years ago, in which they were talking, and the person's like, "Oh, people have proposed to legalize cocaine because cocaine was pretty big use in the 80s, and cocaine's pretty much making a comeback now with the use and all that, particularly young people." But he basically mentioned that in the early 1900s, cocaine was legal, and you had to go to a doctor to basically get cocaine. And it was quite expensive getting it from the doctor. But there was a guy on the corner in which, if you go to him, he will give you cocaine for cheap. And basically, and this was 1989, so to speak. So now it may be a little bit cheaper what he said, but it's very cheap what he basically said in 1989. The price of cocaine in 1989, from what this basically drug dealer would give somebody that's buying off the black market, would cost at the time $10.
Wow.
So now that would be like probably $1, $2 for a piece of cocaine for on the black market. If cocaine was legal, it would be very cheap and very easy to get. So he made a very good point there that because back in the early 1900s, somebody, if you didn't want to like pay a lot to buy cocaine from a doctor, you can pretty much just go to a drug dealer and you can get cocaine for like particularly at that cost would be like extremely cheap. What in 1989 would cost like $10 to buy a piece of blow, which like cocaine in the 80s, and it may be still like that right now, is like over $100 to buy a gram or two.
Right. 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 Yeah. That's wow. That's wow. I didn't know some of those details about alcohol, but yeah, it's I agree with you on the black market argument, especially, and you hear that one a lot as I think that's one
Yeah,
solution. But the black market is thriving in Colorado, and I
yeah,
mean, if anything, it's just normalizing. It's not clear that marijuana is. I mean, usage is just going to go up. It's the problem, and the counter argument, of course, is regulation of marijuana is what's going to bring it down. But it really, it's opening up in such a way, especially with this corporate interest, where you have this marijuana candy that becomes so appealing to kids, to little kids, and you've already had kids ending up in the ER because they ate like a pot cookie or something. So
yeah,
and these are things that are dismissed as irrelevant or who cares or they try to sweep it under the rug as just it happens, it's just about parental responsibility, not necessarily about the fact that there's a valuable candy that it's just because when you have this colorful candy that looks like marijuana, that's a problem, right?
yeah,
uh and that's just one of the many things. So I talk to people, like I try to keep myself updated with the research on marijuana, especially like which I consider to be I think one of the things that makes marijuana particularly harmful, which is and it's kind of paradoxical, but it's the perception of marijuana as being so harmless. It's just a harmless herb, when in reality, I mean, it's anything but that. But
yeah,
because of its damage, of its harm in comparison to other X or Y drug, it's not. So nearly, I mean, alcohol can be worse, or you come up with these comparisons that people make when it comes to uh, marijuana and some other drug, and
Yeah.
marijuana is actually less harmful. But I mean, at the end of the day, adding marijuana, whether it's less or more harmful than alcohol, it's not a. At the end of the day, making marijuana, legalizing marijuana, and adding a third drug on top of tobacco and alcohol, it doesn't make society better off. To me, that's always been the crux of my argument is because to me, and I call myself a progressive because a progressive is someone who thinks, how can the world be a better place tomorrow? What policies can I support today so that the world is better off tomorrow? And the question is marijuana legalization a policy that tomorrow, and of course tomorrow being figurative for a future that may even go beyond my life. A progressive is someone who thinks in the very, very long term, could be 30 years from now, 40 years from now. That's where another big thing for me. It's climate change policy. Yeah, that's the tangent figure I mentioned. Progressives, care about that as well. But specifically, marijuana is if marijuana is legalized today, 40 years from now, will the world be a better place?
Yeah.
Will people will society be healthier? And my argument would be it wouldn't be, because here's what I dread, and here's where I guess I get into the fundamental disagreement with people who are pro marijuana legalization. And I've spoken to a few who are, like I said, on the Democrat camp. When I'm talking to Democrats, I meet a lot of people who are pro legalization. So what I
I have
say to
a,
them is, go ahead.
I have a friend that I often talk to. It's been a while since I talked to him. He's busy and all, but it's like past May. He's I've talked to him a lot, like on live, like particularly on like a Facebook Messenger and all that, like on Messenger and on Live Messenger, like on live chat on Facebook, and he's pro pot, and he's also pro like cocaine, like he's for cocaine legalization.
Right, he's for all the drugs,
Well,
which
not all drug. Well, not all drugs for him.
so okay,
It's
so
particular
cocaine.
cocaine, pot, like mushrooms, and even like
Oh,
acid.
oh
So
wow. Yeah, I mean, who knows where that goes? It's actually pretty interesting because it's funny how often I get the argument. Well, why are you in the business of regulating what people put in their bodies, man? People should be able to put whatever they want in their body. On the conversation about marijuana. But then
yeah,
you say, oh, so well, if we're gonna go with that logic, then you are telling me that you think every substance out there in the world, heroin, ecstasy, I mean, I guess cocaine. I mean, you have a friend who's pro cocaine, but I'm just talking about, the drugs that are the most addictive, the Schedule 1 drugs. You're saying even those should be allowed to be
yeah,
sold and regulated for recreational purposes. And that's where I actually get people hesitating, like, oh, well, no. I mean, you get a lot of people who are hesitating. So there is already an argument, that you do want to limit. I think people still would agree that you do want to limit very harmful substances. And
yeah,
what I would say is that the same argument that you used to say, we should keep heroin illegal, you can use it to pretty much talk about all of the other illegal drugs, even if they're not even close to being as harmful as heroin, because it's not just about the harm of the drug itself, but the extent into which people you will use it and
yeah,
exploit it. Because, like something that Sabed mentioned, talked about all the time, it's marijuana of today is not the marijuana of 30 years ago. I mean, this is a
yeah,
fact. This is just a fact. And the reason it isn't is because marijuana enthusiasts, people who are in that business, have deliberately, bred marijuana to make it more potent, increase the level of THC in the plant in order to make it more addictive, more likely to make people dependent on it because of the high that you get from it. So, and it's a drug that directly impacts your thinking, your cognition. It's a psychoactive drug. So,
yeah.
I I definitely make the argument that if you have a society in which marijuana is illegal, this is what I was trying to get to early when I talked to some liberal friends who are pro marijuana legalization, and it's basically this. When I watch the Super Bowl every year, uh, and they get to the halftime, there's always going to be a few beer ads, and it's so, oh, whatever, it's just a beer ad. You get that, and you have all of these brands, and it's always so glamorous, so
Yeah,
cute, and in my mind I keep thinking, well, especially with the way that the pro marijuana movement tries to sell it, especially, like, I mean, when I graduated high school, there was a survey that came out that asked high school seniors, with my graduating class, whether marijuana was even harmful, and I think it was like 60% said it's not even harmful at all. Of course, the surveys can change, but it's just, to me, it's alarming just to see any survey that says that
yeah,
people at my age are really at that level of that ignorant about it.
yeah,
So what my takeaway from that is, if that's the momentum that they want to build to, if they get their way, and I really hope they don't. That's when I'm always seeing Sabat's work and trying to follow, and doing my retweets and just talking to people, what I can do. But if they get their way, and they actually get marijuana fully legalized, what we will be seeing is an attempt to make to see a marijuana ad next to the beer ad on the Super Bowl. And I'll be honest with you, Vaughn. That's maybe I think we might agree here. That's something that I dread.
yeah,
That's something that I genuinely dread. I dread that I one day will turn on my TV for Super Bowl, and at halftime we're gonna get a marijuana ad being broadcast for millions and millions of kids, just like a beer ad is.
yeah,
Because that's one thing where, and there was this really cool article, and I have a few friends. Like I said, I have a few friends who are not against marijuana legalization, but they're not, like, I have one friend well, he's about to go to med school, but really nice, like, very thoughtful guy. Like, he aced his MCAT, so we get to have, like, very detailed discussions. And there was this interesting article. I think I sent it to you. This Mother Jones article. It was, like,
yeah,
really, really long. Yeah,
yeah,
it's really, really long, and I can't even expect people to finish reading it, because it's just that long. It's like, I get it. I can't just send someone an article that it's, like, that long and expect them to read it. Like, I have not that no expectation, but I did ask him to at least read it as much as he could, or at least skim it. And it had some pretty good conversation, because the I mean, he challenged some of the claims, like, as people will, because and maybe I'm okay. And there's an article about alcohol, but I guess the comparison that I'm making here between alcohol and marijuana is that alcohol gets away with so much because of its cultural place.
yeah,
And Sabet talks about that in his book. But my worry is that the marijuana pushers are trying to get marijuana to that status, so that they can to see what they will be able to get away with. There,
yeah,
because you can look at big tobacco, and Sabet likes to say big tobacco 2.0. But if anything, the marijuana industry is probably more of a big alcohol 2.0, because that's where the tactics are coming from. And you can see
yeah,
it, because big tobacco has taken huge hits. Big tobacco is very restricted.
yeah.
They're not allowed to post ads. You don't see ads you don't really see that many ads for tobacco anymore. And
I
hmm?
I have noticed that. I have basically come to a conclusion that basically the reason why the advocates are pretty much, trying to compare it to the drugs and even trying to regulate like alcohol is so that they won't have any really like have any restrictions.
Right.
They can basically have it like basically become a multi-billion-dollar industry, much like
Yeah.
alcohol industry, and like there's really no point of modeling your regulations off of tobacco because you're not going to make a lot of money. And pretty much,
Yeah.
like, this is my key belief that tobacco won't be legal for any longer. I think it'll be a drug that will eventually become illegal sometime. I can see it like that with the
I,
concept.
I don't know if it will become illegal, but I think the great success with the tobacco the thing is that tobacco was successfully, and I will, this is what I like, and this is why I'm a liberal, because I think in the end liberals have a, I mean, liberals win causes. I think the greatest causes of the 20th century have been championed by liberals, um, civil rights, that's a liberal cause, I mean, so social security, all of those, then the Medicare, all of these things are championed by liberals, and
Yeah,
the anti-tobacco push also came from liberals,
yeah,
so that's why that's why I go back to that debate where I'm watching the people talking about legal debating this medical marijuana proposal, and I kind of wish that the person arguing against it wasn't a Marco Rubio representative, like wasn't just a guy who works for Marco Rubio, like because uh, because I think that, like, there's, let's be real, like, there's more liberals than there are conservatives in this country already. Hillary won by 3 million more votes.
yeah.
So by just looking at it from demographics, like, and there's a growing number of liberals. Like, they gotta vote, they gotta get active. But when they get active, when liberals get together and they get together and do activism, they win. They do really great things. So that's why tobacco has fallen so much. It's because there was a liberal backlash
Yeah.
towards tobacco. But that's my thing right now, because I feel like there's not really. I mean, we got to build, like, the reason I like learn about Sam so much is because, I mean, seeing Sabet, I know Sabet is a liberal. I know that, I mean, he's working with Patrick Kennedy. Kennedy's famously liberal. So I like that it's coming. They're coming from a place um that isn't what's the word, it's not they're not they're coming from a place that isn't they're not the Nancy Reagan anti-drug
Yeah.
people, which I don't want them to be. I definitely want them, like, because if there's going to be a backlash, if we're really going to curb marijuana legalization, if we're going to at some point, I mean, I worry that we're going to have to learn our lesson by taking in legal marijuana and really getting some people getting hurt, for us to finally realize, hey, this is actually causing problems. We got to curb it. But whether it gets to that, I mean, we already have an experiment going on in Colorado for like 6 years now. But um, if we get to that point where there's a backlash, I like that it's coming from a public health concern liberals, because that's where it needs to come from, and it needs to be a genuine concern for people's well-being, because that, to me, that's a progressive cause. So that's why I'm very supportive of Sam as an organization. I think they've done great work. They have legitimate science backing up their statements. And I want, my goal is to be able to continue to see them growing. And we build coalitions. And I mean, and people like to say, this is not a Democrat or Republican issue. And to an extent, it is. I mean, I welcome any Republicans that want to work to keep marijuana legal and to come up with workable alternatives. Like, I'm not, but I definitely do want it to be something that people can see as progressive, not conservative. I do want to give that outlook, because it's something that a public health concern reform, to me, it's something. To me, it's progressive. To me, that's literally what progressivism is when it comes to healthcare politics.
I know
It,
that. I mean, besides like Patrick Kennedy and Kevin Sabet being like pretty much the founders of SAM, you also have David
right.
Fromm. So David
Yeah.
Fromm, he's a
Yeah.
conservative, but he's more of a moderate conservative.
Yeah.
He,
David Frum. Yeah. Yeah. I like
he's
David Frum a lot. Yeah.
he's more of a moderate conservative if you look at his politics. Like he's for gun control.
Yep.
He's a never Trumper. He has a
Yep.
book about basically being a never Trumper.
Yep.
He's fairly moderate, conservative, and he
Yep.
basically is Canadian American. He was born in Canada, but he eventually moved down here and he has dual citizenship. And I do like that as well. It comes from a, sociable, liberal standpoint. I know that for the tobacco debate, because we really have been smoking tobacco for thousands of years.
Yep.
Tobacco use really didn't basically become of interest of the West until the late 1500s to early 1600s, because that's when the Chinese started basically smoking tobacco instead of like chewing it and all that, and they also started mixing tobacco smoking with opium smoking, which eventually
Mm-hmm.
whole led to people started smoking opium, eating it, and etc. And that pretty much like Christopher Columbus discovering tobacco in the U.S. That pretty much piqued the West's interest in tobacco. And in the 1900s, cigarettes was invented. Now, the cigarette was more of a better way to inhale stuff from the nicotine and all that. It basically had a better, basically, inhaling system in it. And we discovered in the 1930s a particular British doctor discovered named Sir Richard Dole. He discovered through surveys that cigarettes were causing lung cancer. At first, he thought it was it's probably from the pavement, that they were putting on the roads and all that. That's why people were getting lung cancer. But then he noticed that like all of them patients were getting lung cancer or cigarette smokers, and at the time, the only common type of cancer that they had at the time was stomach cancer and some other cancer as well. But lung cancer was new, and discovering that people were getting lung cancer from smoking cigarettes, and most of them were male. About only two of his patients were female, and he and a bunch of others basically wrote this report that cigarettes caused lung cancer,
Mm-hmm.
and this basically forced him to quit smoking cigarettes. And then when this report was released, there was this one tobacco executive from this one tobacco company, and he heard from his other executives. They're like, "Oh, look at this rubbish that these scientists said about tobacco and so and so." And at first, he was going to read the report with a maniacal eye. Then he kept reading and reading and reading it, and then he's like, "What are we doing? We're killing people." And he went to his top executives to basically tell them to basically we need to do something about this. Instead of like, we need to basically say, these products cause cancer and all that, they're like, let's just brush this underneath the rug. And this is all in a documentary. It's a three-part documentary called Tobacco Wars. It's on YouTube. It's a very good documentary.
I'll
And
have to check it out. Yeah. Yeah. To kind of just backtrack a little bit what you were saying about from I'm glad you brought that up. I was just thinking about that, and I do like him a lot. I like the coalition of people. I mean, he's honestly it's sometimes hard from some positions that he has. I guess it's just because I mean he was a speech writer for Bush, and he was a major proponent of the Iraq War, which I would say was somewhere where I would strongly criticize him or disagree with him on. But I really do respect him, and I think he's never Trump. He's never Trump speech. I mean, this is the guy who actually voted for Hillary, like because
yeah,
some never Trumpers just didn't vote or voted third party, but he actually voted for Hillary for.
and
So to
he's
me,
he's sticking to his guns with his never Trumper. He's like, no, like, and
yeah, yeah.
then you have like another Trumper like Ben Shapiro, who basically has said,
Oh,
like,
oh, but
and
yeah,
he's like,
yeah. But to kind of focus back on from, I do like that, but the consistency of what they say. I mean, and honestly, I'll take Fromm because to me, Fromm is not a he's not a he's not a he's not a Ben Shapiro, like you said. It's like I would
Ben
not
Shapiro.
want. Yeah, I would not want to have Ben Shapiro showing up. I mean, I would take him, but ideally, I would not want to have the image of Ben Shapiro next to Sam. Like
Yeah,
I don't because Ben Shapiro is like I don't know if you call it a more traditional conservative, but like I said, like Trump is like a pro gun control, never Trumper who actually voted for Hillary.
yeah,
Who and I mean to me, like I said, I do want the face of Sam to be a liberal face,
yeah,
and I know people will try not to make it a liberal or conservative issue, but I do think there's no shame in saying we're liberal and it's okay, and this is a liberal cause because to me
yeah,
liberal causes are the best causes. So I don't have I mean maybe the SAM people themselves as an organization would be afraid to say we're a liberal organization explicitly or even Sabet saying I mean although there's no doubt in my mind that Sabet is a registered Democrat but
yeah.
well actually I think I'm pretty confident he is. I mean, I don't I know there's no way that Sabet is I don't know. Sabet is a liberal. No, it's pretty clear. I
I
mean,
I've seen some tweets because Sabat basically keeps it to mostly drugs. Like when he
yeah,
talks about politics, he mostly keeps it to that. He doesn't really talk about too much of anything else.
yeah.
Occasionally, he will do like I remember he did this one tweet in which he basically I don't know he basically oh it was a non-drug related tweet in which he basically congratulated Hillary on something like being more like prone to like listening and all that or something like that. I forget, it was like something about Hillary and Trump, like their personality wise, and he basically gave her more positive
Oh no, I know Sabet voted for Hillary. I know that for a fact because well, I mean, he explicitly said he really liked Hillary's response because at one point she was asked about marijuana, and Sabet shared, and he said he liked her response to the marijuana issue. So I know he voted. I'm pretty sure he voted for her. But like I said, yeah, I definitely like because honestly, when well, From is right. I mean, I guess he is technically a conservative. Um, I don't mind him showing up on the like. If I went on the Sam website and I saw Ben Shapiro's face, I'd be like, oh God, like I would probably have some sort of really bad reflex. Like, oh, why? But just because there's a lot of toxicity, like, I mean, but you could make the argument, from being, but just because Shapiro is like, it's just not even a respectable conservative. Shapiro is just a bigot. So I don't want to have that kind of person on
yeah.
because
Yeah, I would say that Ben Shapiro's not very consistent, never Trumper. Like he said a while
yeah,
ago that he's like, "Oh, I like some things that
yeah,
Trump did.
yeah,
I
and
don't
there
like
are
other."
others. Yeah, like there's a lot of conservatives I would not want to see showing up on the Sam website. And
Yeah,
David Frum is one of the conservatives that I mean he's a conservative I really like honestly.
yeah.
But
I
I
really
mean
like I really like David Fromm as well. I follow him on Twitter, and I
yeah,
think I think he's
he's
good.
a really smart guy. He's a brilliant guy. Yeah, no doubt
Yeah,
about it. His articles in the Atlantic are great to read. So
that's
um
yeah. The Atlantic is mostly like you can place as I don't know if you consider that as moderate to lean left. Like
yeah,
I don't know,
yeah,
like
I
what?
would call it pretty. It's a fairly liberal publication by American standards, at least.
Yeah,
Um, but I mean, honestly, man, and with the divide of politics, I mean, the actual pretty much conservative publications that that are out there, I mean, are for the most part just horrible.
yeah. Then
Look at Shapiro. Like Shapiro is the guy who came from Breitbart, and
yeah,
Breitbart is like, I mean, I don't want to be able to like, it's like pure like that's like
it's
cancer. That's like cancer.
it's
Breitbart
pure
is it's
it's
yeah
pure far right propaganda
yeah
website. I mean,
yeah.
there's
So
worse. I mean, there's worse websites than Breitbart. The Daily Stormer is one. That's the
well,
worst of it.
that's not even that like let's not even go there. But yeah, um,
That's
yeah.
like
Like, I don't even want to go to the daily like that's, but not to
that's
get
the
too off.
worst of the worst.
Yeah. But yeah, no, like I said, that like because I do want to learn about Sam to be like something that I want to see like I want to see like Nancy Pelosi or like whoever the Democrat leaders are embracing learn about Sam. I would love to see that,
Yeah.
because right now in New York you have this lady from I I hate when they do that. I don't want actors like this lady in New York, Cynthia Nixon. You know,
Oh, yeah.
be as progressive as you want, lady, but you are not qualified to be governor of New York, and I really hope you lose. I mean, the primary is coming up. I'm gonna be so because if she wins the primary, she's most likely gonna win gonna be the next governor of New York. So the primary in a state like New York is actually where the stakes are of who really will be the next governor. So man, if she actually wins the primary, that's just oh, I have to like check the polls because Cynthia Nixon being governor of New York would be just
And
I mean,
from what I've seen, Anthony Kumo, he's mostly winning. Like he's more like it seems like a lot of liberal voters are more comfortable with him than Cynthia Nixon, from what I've seen, which I have been relieved as
Andrew
well.
Cuomo. You mean
Yeah,
Andrew Cuomo? He's the one. He's running for re-election, right? I mean, he's already yeah, he's running for re-election. Yeah, no, I would support voting for Cuomo. That's the guy I would vote for. But man, it's just Cynthia Nixon has the whole underdog thing going for her, but she's not a qualified underdog. She has no business running. I really want people to get it to their heads, but I don't want to get too off the topic. But yeah, a little small shout out to Scott Gagnon. I love that guy. I mean, I've been following him for years now. He has some great takes, and that's another face I like to see. That's another liberal face. You know Scott, right? I mean, you follow him as well, right? He's brought you up a few times.
who is that again?
Scott Gagnon, is that how you say his name?
Oh, Scott Gagnon. Oh yeah, yeah.
Gagnon, yeah, Gagnon. I'm sorry,
I
I
don't know why.
I
At
butchered his
first,
name.
at first, I was going to get concerned because I thought you meant what's that guy's name? He was on Joe Rogan and a bunch of that sad.
Ugh, I don't
I
even.
thought
Oh
I thought
no. Oh
I
God,
thought
don't
you
even
meant
bring that
him
guy
at
up. Yeah,
first.
yeah,
I thought
yeah,
you meant him
yeah,
at
yeah.
first, but
No, no.
I like Scott. I like him
Yeah,
reaching stuff.
yeah. See, that's what I like. I like seeing like this strain of people who are public health um advocates, but they're Democrats. Like, I mean, well,
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know if Scott is closer to an independent, but he votes. He's likely going to vote Democrat. Like, I like. I mean, I don't want to place him. Like, I know some people don't like to be put on a box or label. Like, I love being calling myself a Democrat. I think
yeah.
we all should, but I mean, he's a lib. This is a guy. He's a guy with a lib. This is a liberal guy. Like, this is a guy. I mean, you go through his Twitter. This is a guy who's very much you know not he's this guy's not a conservative. This guy's not the kind of guy who's like I don't really see him as like a democratic guy or at least not a Republican or a Trump supporter in that sense. I don't know. I mean, I don't know the details of his views on politics, but I mean, this is a guy who retweets NPR and criticizes Trump on his Twitter when he's
Yeah.
not talking because yeah, and he's pretty good. I really like him. I really like his anti-addiction. I know I'm just looking at his thing right now. I know he's into anti-gambling. He's an addiction. I know he works with addicts, and he's pretty great. God is
He was up
like,
yeah, just yeah. I think it was last week. I don't think he's up there anymore, but he was up in Cleveland, which is an hour away from my county.
yeah, he was like last week. He was in Cleveland.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think he's yeah, no, yeah, he's back in Maine right now, but I guess his little event that he did up in Cleveland will be moving to Denver next year.
Yeah. So yeah, that's mhm. So that's basically um what I'm getting at with people. Just to get back, like when I'm talking to you, and I like having this conversation because in order for Sam to really thrive, they really need to get. I mean, well, it's real young Democrats who are now getting mobilized to vote. You're
Yeah,
hoping for like a blue wave this November, and you want to change the tide of marijuana. Because I'm like, I want to have my cake and eat it too. I want to get those voters who will vote for tuition-free college and universal health care. I want those voters to also say, we don't want legalization of marijuana, but we do want a reform of the system. So, you don't want someone who goes to jail just for for getting caught with a joint. And Sabed has been pretty clear on this. And you want to come up with,
Decriminalization
yeah,
measures.
what you call decriminalization. And it's funny seeing Sabed like using the term sometimes when he talks to some of the pro marijuana people, because is like he's so careful not to use the term because he knows it's so easily conflated with marijuana legalization, and he doesn't want to come off as a guy he doesn't want to come off like, oh, he's supporting that. But I mean, between you and I, yeah, I mean, decriminalization is just not throwing someone in jail for just being a user, and really having a public health approach to drug use. It's so important. You can't
Yeah,
keep prosecuting people for just possession. I mean, that's something that's huge. And I wish that we could get a. I mean, and I'll be real. These are things that are going to need to be championed by a major party, and it's not going to be the Republican Party, unfortunately. Like, I mean, I know it keeps sounding like I'm partisan. Some people want to say like it shouldn't be nonpartisan, but at the end of the day, in order for these things to get passed and to turn into actual policy, you need a politician in a position of power. A congressman, congresswoman, or someone, a president. Who will propose these things. And it's not going to be the Republicans as of today. Like
yeah.
those, it's just not going to be. I mean,
Yeah, the conservative party here in the U.S. has been going downhill ever since
yeah,
Reagan
they
left
are,
office.
and you don't want them to be like. I don't want a Ben Shapiro type politician with all of these bigoted beliefs to be championing my cause. I don't. That's why I actually want. That's why I want a liberal face all of these ideas. So that's why having my cake and eating it too would be to convince someone to say vote for gun control, vote for tuition-free college, vote for universal health care, vote for climate change, like
Yeah,
policies, and also vote against legalization of marijuana. But at the same time, vote for you want to have a candidate that is very clear and direct about how to approach the issue of marijuana, to reform it, to avoid arrests, to avoid, to even address, the racial profiling that goes on. People will often talk, I see a lot of articles being shared on Twitter of people who are now marijuana entrepreneurs who say, oh, well, when a black man did this 10 years ago, he ended up in jail. So I definitely do want to address those things.
I remember a while ago. I think this was back in May or maybe in April. There's this one guy named Brad. Now he was like he basically wrote for this one publication in California. I mean, he's a pot writer. He writes about all that stuff, and Kevin commented comment on one of his things, and then he responded back with, "Oh, you're connected to big pharma and all that." So and so. And I basically decided, like, oh, I'm going to shoot back at this guy to defend Kevin here by, like, oh, what about George Soros and his connections to Big Pharma and Monsanto and his basically being the number one financial backer for the legalization movement? And then he responds to me by saying, oh, he's like, I don't have any, like, foot in any side. Like, he said that he doesn't have any, like, he's in the middle, basically. And he told me, like, oh, go basically bother somebody else, and so and so. And then I respond to him by saying, I'm like, then I respond to him by saying, well, you basically said that to Kevin, so I'm like, I might as well say something to you. But then I follow by saying, though it seems like you and Kevin has come to understanding that he has no connections with Big Pharma. And
Right.
then the next day, or maybe that night, I discovered the dude blocked me. He blocked me. It's like, really? You blocked me? What,
Uh,
are you that oversensitive? Or are you
yeah,
hiding something?
yeah. So, but just to get back, I think it's important to have the conversation about race and marijuana policy because first of all, it's not just marijuana policy. I mean, the the issue of race and just law enforcement has been, it has been going on in this country pretty much since its founding. We've had the problem, you know. So when someone comes up to me and says, "Well, what about marijuana and the profiling of black marijuana usage?" Because let's be real, there's no when it comes to marijuana usage, there's no race that does it more than other race. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
that's so. But whether black people who do use marijuana are particularly vulnerable to some forms of either racial profiling or being arrested or being and you want to have that conversation. It's important. I don't know how much Sam necessarily has addressed those things, but it's important to to be able to respond to that argument and do so with confidence. And you should be able to say that the criminal justice reform should be a goal because
Yeah.
it's not. I don't think it's necessarily a marijuana thing. Like, I mean, you can be a black man just walking down the street drinking some sort of just drinking and with a bag of Skittles, anything like that, and you can get in trouble. So the issue of racial profiling is an issue that is close to me, and it's something that I want to help with. But
Have you been
but
racially profiled, Andrus?
I haven't been, no, but it's close to me because it's the kind of thing that you think about when you talk to people about it. You talk to someone who's black, and they give you this whole experience that I haven't had. Like, I had my previous roommates were black, and the conversation would come up, and they would get like they had some really weird stories. They weren't all with they weren't really with cops, but um, just like people sometimes think, but just overall, it's just you hear of these things, and I really cared, especially with the ways around. So when someone comes up to me and says, "Oh, with marijuana," because I don't, the last thing you want to do is that you are proposing or you are promoting some sort of a policy that is leads to racism or that has foundations in racism. Right, and Saban, I need to read it again. We gotta do that next time. What I recommend next time we do one of these, get the book and read it, and then I'm gonna reread it, and then we'll talk about it because
Yeah.
the bed has some really interesting um, commentary on that particular aspect of it, on one of the chapters on, especially on the history. He goes a little bit on the history, and he admits that there was of the racism surrounding a lot of these policies in the 1930s.
Yeah. Yeah, that is
So
true. With pot and even cocaine, for example. I
yeah,
mean,
absolutely.
cocaine.
So when you wanna if you wanna have a conversation about race, which should be held, absolutely should be should be brought up.
Yeah.
Uh, you want to make the argument basically that I'm with you and it can be reformed, but I don't think it's a marijuana issue in the sense that it's not the marijuana itself or the existence or non-existence of marijuana that's causing it itself. It's not the legal status of marijuana, but the attitudes of law enforcement towards people who look a certain way, and that's really what needs
It's
to change.
a
That's what
police
needs to change.
reform issue, like with like Colorado and Washington, with the rate of white kids basically being arrested for illegal activity with pot. That's basically dropped, but rates for blacks and Latinos
Hmm.
that has increased, which
Right,
shows that this is not a race thing. Well, I
right,
mean, well, it's not like a drug thing. It's not a drug thing in which, like, if you legalize it, like, arrest rates for minorities will go down. That's not correct. It's more of, we need to reform how the police do their business, of how they conduct arrest and all that, and so and
right.
so. More
So
about
yeah,
that.
I just definitely wanted to leave it. Yeah, exactly. Like how. So that's basically because I get that a lot, and I'm always kind of prepared because there's so many counter arguments that people make when it comes to because and I've heard really I've heard them all, but they keep coming up in different forms. So that's basically it. So what I recommend is it's get Tibet's book when you get a chance. Read it over. I want to reread the whole book because it's been some time since I last read it. I used to keep it by my nightstand. I would read it often, but lately I've been kind of busy. But I'm gonna get it again, and because there's some really interesting stuff there. And I've always wanted to discuss it with someone, but I've never really met someone who would be like, I mean, at least someone on my side, because I feel like when I'm talking to someone who already agrees with me and we can read and go through the book, it doesn't necessarily turn into just the same old arguments getting brought up and me having to like, oh well, this is this, like you already agree with me on the fundamentals of it, so we can kind of get into the little things on the book. So I feel like next time let's just go ahead.
I do find annoyed with some of these pro pop people, on particular on Twitter, which
Yeah,
they basically call Kevin a prohibitionist.
yeah,
I don't know if they don't know what prohibitionist is, but that's completely different from what he's proposing.
yeah,
Prohibitionists are pretty much proposing for draconian laws, which are harsh
yeah.
laws. Basically, what Kevin's proposing is pretty much like decriminalization. That's pretty much it. Now, prohibition and decriminalization are similar in the fact that both of the whatever activity is still illegal, but the practices are
Right,
completely different.
right,
Prohibition is draconian laws, more it's like, oh, go to jail and so forth.
right,
Decriminalization is more like, oh, I'll just give you like a parking ticket, like basically a fine and treatment as well. It's
right. I mean, you don't. Yeah, yeah. No, I agree. And you don't call someone who runs. I mean, you don't call someone who proposes certain traffic laws or giving you a speeding ticket. They're not a prohibition. They're because just because they're prohibiting you from going over a certain speed when
yeah.
you're on the highway. So I agree with you that these people are just trying to,
It's more.
you
It's
know,
more.
I mean, it's Twitter. It's Twitter. They're just trying to come up with the simplest way of going about it. But I think if the real way to build more momentum for Sam is to keep going and emphasize how liberal it is really that what this is about and why and say drug abuse is wrong because you can get the most agreement when you start by saying I want to curb drug abuse. That's something that everyone would agree with. Now, what can we do to curb drug abuse? If we legalize marijuana, are we doing something to curb drug abuse? That's really where I like to start because I've talked to people who say oh I look forward to the day where there's marijuana ads on the Super Bowl. There's people who have said that to me, and some people who I like or whom I've had good agreements or conversations on other issues. So how do you reach to people like that, or how do you counter that argument so that they look like they're the ones? Because you just made a face like, whoa, wow, what the hell? He wants to see more drugs being promoted on major TV. That's crazy. So I mean, I wanna get that face from more people, so that
Yeah,
you
I
can
would say
kind of
I would say the best way to do that is basically tell them the harms of the drugs and basically pump out that old fashioned social liberal anti corporate feel to them. Just
yeah,
pump it up.
yeah. I hope my hope really is I mean, who knows when if I'll ever get the chance. I mean, but when I get like here's something I've been thinking a lot about, like, and let's kind of finish on this note. But
Mm.
you've heard of Alexandria Ocasio Cortez by this point. Everyone really has. Um, and I've been looking her up. And I did try to get like last time I checked, I didn't see anything. Let me check again. Because I don't know if she had said anything about marijuana yet. Let's see. I think she did address it. Let's see. Okay. Okay. So this is all she said. I mean, I just found out this is all she said. And she said this a while ago before. Um, I mean, she's likely for. I mean, she's been campaigning with Sanders, who's been. Okay,
Mm.
yeah, there it is. Yeah, yeah. She does want to legalize marijuana. Oh, I didn't know. I hadn't checked, but oh, yeah, she's already. See, she's already saying just legalize cannabis plus and fail war on drugs. Okay.
So who
I
is
mean,
this?
huh?
So who is this, by the way?
Alexandria Ocasio Cortez. Have you heard of her?
No, I have not.
The woman who won. Oh, come on, you must have. I could have sworn I've seen you retweet something or related to
I think,
tangential.
I think so.
You haven't.
I think
She.
so. Isn't she from New York district?
Yeah. Yes, that's her. That's her.
Yeah.
So I guess to phrase because I like her better than Bernie Sanders because she's not old or stubborn.
Who you're talking?
But I like her. I like what she represents. I guess it's a progressive, but she's, of course, I'm seeing here. She is very much pro legalization. So I would want to ask her more than I would want to ask Bernie Sanders because she represents like the more progressive wing of the Democratic Party. That
Yeah,
question about corporate, because I feel like no one's ever really asked that. Never, no one asked Bernie Sanders about it, and no one really went out and asked her that. So
yeah,
my hope is that at one point I'll be able to somehow ask her in some setting. I mean, honestly, man, like if I can do, I will do like a video. Like next time she does like a town hall or something. Sometimes I get like videos, like little video questions from people around the country. I want to like compose a question, ask her here specifically about why, how do you reconcile your, you're very much you're not, you're very much critical of corporate abuses. You want to curb corporations exploiting people and
mm,
taking advantage or making a profit of human suffering. That's something that's important to you. You want to curb corporations for making a profit of human suffering, but at the same time you support legalizing marijuana, which would create a big tobacco 2.0 to essentially generate another industry that's going to profit off people's addictions. Do you not see how that conflicts with your progressive belief that corporations should not be able to exploit and make profit off people's suffering?
yeah,
Because that's something that I want them to address. Because to me, Alexandria Ocasio Cortez, in many ways, that woman is a dream to me. Like she's what I want in American politics in so many ways. You know, grassroots campaign, um, unapologetically for a living wage and universal healthcare. Because like these are things that they shouldn't. They're not even that controversial in some other countries. So that's something that I definitely want to see addressed. So I guess
yeah.
we'll leave it at that. I mean, yeah, but yeah, man, I don't want to stay up. I'm honestly already kind of going beyond my time. I need to go to sleep. But it was good talking to you, Vaughn. It was a good conversation. You let
Yeah,
me know when you get the book, and it will take you like a day to read it. Just pick a day to read it, and then we'll do like a book club discussion about it. It'll be a little more structured because we can go over some chapters and whatnot. It'll be fun.
yeah. I did have a thought in which what was it? I had it, and then I was nice enough to allow you to keep talking.
Sure.
Um, what was it?
Well,
Eh,
yeah,
okay,
hold it, and then we can talk about it over text. But yeah, man. All right, man. Well, it was good talking. This is
you
gonna
too.
be up. Feel free to. I'm gonna send you a link of this whole broadcast if you want to share it on your feed. You have more
Sure.
followers than I do, so your reach probably better than mine. So, all right, man. It was good talking. I hope you have a good night. All right.
You too.
All right.